Walk into any UK supermarket and you think you're choosing food. You're not. Before you touch a trolley, the store has already decided what you'll see, what you'll crave, and what you'll walk out with. The fresh food at the entrance? That's bait. It makes up a tiny fraction of what they actually want you to buy. Because the truth is uncomfortable. UK supermarkets are not designed to sell you good food. They are designed to sell food that lasts longer, costs less to handle, and keeps you coming back for more. That's why the UK eats more ultra-processed food than almost any country in Europe. Not because people want it, but because the system depends on it. Let me show you how the modern supermarket is engineered, aisle by aisle, against your health. You're watching Protect Our Cart, revealing the truth on shelves. If you value this depth of analysis into what really goes into your basket, subscribing ensures you don't miss the next investigation. We need to define exactly what we are up against. When we talk about bad food, we aren't just discussing sugar content or high calories. We are talking about ultra-processed foods, or UPF. These are industrial formulations made from substances derived from foods, but with little to no intact whole food remaining. In the UK, UPF accounts for nearly 60% of the average person's diet. Compare that to Portugal or Italy, where the number sits closer to 14%, and the anomaly becomes terrifyingly clear. Walk the aisles of a British supermarket, and you are walking through a library of chemically modified starches, hydrolyzed proteins, and inverted syrups. The packaging screams natural, fortified, or low-fat, but turn the packet over, and the ingredient list reads like a chemistry set. This dominance isn't a failure of willpower on your part. It is a triumph of logistics for them. Real food rots. Real food varies in shape and size. Real food is a logistical nightmare for a corporation that relies on uniformity and long shelf lives to maintain razor-thin margins. The bad food dominates because it is the only food that survives the modern supply chain profitably. To understand how the UK became the sick man of Europe in terms of diet, we have to look back at the radical shift in our shopping habits. 70 years ago, the British high street was a network of specialists. You bought meat from a butcher, bread from a baker, and vegetables from a greengrocer. The relationship with food was direct, local, and inevitably seasonal. But the post-war era brought a demand for convenience and a fascination with American efficiency. The supermarket model promised everything under one roof, cheap and plentiful. As the big four retailers, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, and Morrisons, began to consolidate their grip on the market, they faced a critical problem. To sell everything cheaply, they needed scale. To have scale, they needed standardization. An apple could no longer just be an apple. It had to be a specific size to fit a plastic tray, a specific variety that could endure weeks in cold storage, and it had to look perfect under fluorescent lights. However, the real profit wasn't in the produce aisle. The margins on fresh eggs or milk are notoriously low, sometimes sold at a loss just to get you through the door. The real money was found in the center aisles, the dry goods, the frozen meals, the snacks. These products possess what the industry calls hyperpalatability. By stripping fiber and water out of ingredients and replacing them with fat, sugar, and salt, manufacturers created products that trigger the brain's reward systems more effectively than any natural food ever could. But crucially for the supermarkets, these products offered immortality. A box of cereal or a frozen pizza does not spoil in a week. It can sit in a distribution center for months. This shift wasn't just about taste. It was about de-risking the business of selling calories. By the 1980s and 90s, the supermarket had ceased to be a mere distributor of farm produce and had become a primary partner in the industrialization of eating. They began demanding products that could survive complex, global supply chains. If a supplier couldn't modify their ingredients to last longer or cost less, they were delisted. The result was a gradual, silent erosion of nutritional value. We traded nutrient density for caloric density. We traded the butcher's advice for the marketing claim on a cardboard box. And as prices dropped, our consumption of these engineered products skyrocketed. The UK's food culture was uniquely vulnerable to this takeover. Unlike France or Italy, where strong culinary traditions acted as a cultural barrier against industrial slop, the UK embraced the convenience revolution with open arms. We allowed the supermarket to dictate our diet, believing that the abundance on the shelves equated to quality. The consolidation was ruthless. By controlling 95% of the grocery market, these retailers became the gatekeepers of the British diet. They possessed the power to dictate not just the price, but the very composition of the food we eat. If they demanded a ready meal be sold for £3, the manufacturer had to cut costs, usually by substituting real ingredients for cheap fillers. This race to the bottom created a food environment where the worst options are the most affordable, the most available, and the most aggressively marketed. This creates a feedback loop where quality is systematically stripped away in silence. To keep a frozen lasagna at a stagnant price point while inflation rages, manufacturers don't just shrink the portion size. They fundamentally alter the chemistry of the product. This is the era of reformulation. Expensive dairy fats are quietly replaced with cheap vegetable oils. Traditional stocks are swapped for hydrolyzed vegetable proteins and yeast extracts that mimic the taste of meat without the cost of raising an animal. The ingredient list expands, not because the recipe is becoming more complex, but because it takes an arsenal of stabilizers and emulsifiers to hold these disparate, low-quality elements together in a shape that resembles food. What ends up in your trolley is no longer a product of agriculture, but a product of engineering. This is the rise of ultra-processed food, or UPF. In the United Kingdom, this isn't just a niche section of the store. It is the dominant category. Statistics show that over 50% of the calories consumed in the UK now come from these ultra-processed sources, a figure significantly higher than our European neighbors. The reason for this dominance is cold, hard economics. Real food, fresh vegetables, raw meats, dairy is a logistical nightmare for a supermarket empire. It rots. It bruises. It requires temperature control and rapid turnover. Every day a head of broccoli sits unsold. It loses value until it becomes a total loss. By contrast, ultra-processed food is the perfect inventory. It is shelf-stable, durable, and hyper-palatable. A box of sugary cereal or a vacuum-sealed snack cake can sit in a warehouse for months without degrading. For a retailer operating on razor-thin margins, this longevity is gold. They are financially incentivized to push you toward the center aisles, where the food is dead, rather than the perimeter where the food is alive. This is why you will rarely see a buy one get one free offer on fresh avocados or organic chicken. The margins simply don't exist to support it. Those aggressive promotions are reserved almost exclusively for the products with the highest markup and the longest shelf life, the biscuits, the crisps, and the fizzy drinks. They are selling you convenience, yes, but they are primarily selling you their own efficiency. If this deep dive into the mechanics of the food industry is helping you see your weekly shop in a new light, liking this video helps these investigations reach more consumers who deserve to know the truth. The manipulation extends beyond just the products themselves. It is woven into the very architecture of the store. Supermarkets are designed as high-stakes psychological environments where every square inch is monetized. The placement of bad food is never accidental. Brands pay enormous listing fees to secure eye-level positioning, effectively renting the space in your visual field. This creates a barrier to entry that smaller, ethical producers cannot overcome. A local farmer making a high-quality, low-sugar tomato sauce cannot afford the tens of thousands of pounds required to sit on the premium shelf at Tesco or Sainsbury's. As a result, the choice you think you have is an illusion. You might see 20 different brands of pasta sauce, but if you turn the jars around, you will find they are mostly owned by the same 3 global conglomerates, all using the same high-sugar base, all paying for the privilege of being the only options you see. This dominance allows supermarkets to deploy one of their most deceptive tactics: the invention of fake farms. As consumers became vaguely aware that industrial food was problematic, they started craving a connection to the land. The supermarkets responded not by supporting real local agriculture, but by inventing it. They created brands with rustic, pastoral names: Willow Farms, Boswell Farms, Redmere Farms, that sound like idyllic, family-run operations in the British countryside. In reality, these farms do not exist. They are phantom brands, trademarks created in a boardroom to slap onto imported meat and vegetables sourced from massive industrial pools. It is a calculated masquerade designed to exploit your desire for quality while delivering the exact opposite. You pick up a package of chicken because the label evokes images of green pastures and red barns, creating a health halo around the product. You trust the imagery, assuming that a retailer wouldn't blatantly mislead you about the origin of your dinner. But the product inside is often the result of the very intensive, low-welfare factory farming you were trying to avoid. The supermarket essentially launders the reputation of industrial food through the aesthetics of traditional farming. This deception serves a dual purpose. First, it pacifies the consumer's conscience, making them feel good about a purchase that is actually degrading the food system. Second, and perhaps more insidiously, it undercuts genuine British farmers. Real farms, with real overheads and high welfare standards, cannot compete with the price of Woodside Farms pork, which is simply cheap, imported meat dressed up in a Union Jack costume. The supermarket uses its immense power to set a price ceiling that is artificially low, driven by these phantom brands. This forces genuine producers into a corner. They must either slash their own standards to compete with a fiction or go out of business entirely. The result is a marketplace where the bad food drives out the good. The shelves are stocked with products that have been engineered to be addictive, marketed to be deceptive, and priced to be irresistible. We are walking through a carefully constructed trap where the path of least resistance always leads to the worst possible diet. And while we navigate this maze, the retailers are gathering data on our every move, refining their strategies to ensure that the next time we walk in, we are even less likely to leave with real food in our baskets. Consider the loyalty card, a seemingly benign plastic rectangle that sits on your keyring or an app resting quietly on your phone. We are told these are tools for savings, a generous giveback from a benevolent retailer. In reality, they are the most sophisticated surveillance devices in the history of retail. Every time you scan that card, you are not just getting a discount. You are feeding a predictive algorithm that knows your weaknesses better than you do. If the data shows you buy premium ice cream on Friday evenings after purchasing a bottle of wine, the system tags you as stress-prone at the end of the week. It doesn't send you a coupon for broccoli. It sends you a targeted offer for a new line of high-sugar comfort food, precisely when your willpower is statistically at its lowest. This feedback loop creates a personalized ecosystem of bad choices. The supermarket is no longer a passive warehouse of goods. It is an active opponent playing a game of chess against your nutritional health, and it is thinking 5 moves ahead. But the manipulation goes deeper than just data. It is built into the very physics of the store itself. We have to understand that modern supermarkets are not primarily in the business of selling food. They are in the business of renting real estate. To a supermarket executive, a shelf is not a display unit. It is a rental property. Every inch of that steel racking has a calculated yield. Fresh produce, real food like spinach, apples, or unadulterated meat, is a high-risk tenant. It spoils, it bruises, and it requires temperature control. It is a liability that depreciates every hour it sits unsold. Conversely, a box of ultra-processed breakfast cereal or a packet of chemically stabilized biscuits is the perfect tenant. It can sit there for months without complaining, it stacks efficiently, and it offers a profit margin that fresh food can never compete with. Because of this, the bad food effectively subsidizes the store's existence. The manufacturers of these hyper-palatable products pay immense sums for the privilege of occupying the eye-level real estate, the zone between your chest and your chin where sales are highest. This system, often referred to as slotting fees or listing charges, turns the aisle into a pay-to-play arena. A small, local producer making a healthy, low-sugar alternative simply cannot afford the rent. They are relegated to the bottom shelf, the ankle zone, or exiled to the specialty aisle where foot traffic drops by 80%. When you walk down the central aisles, you aren't seeing a meritocracy of the best-tasting or healthiest products. You are looking at a billboard of the highest bidders. If uncovering these hidden mechanics of the food industry helps you navigate the aisles with more clarity, liking this video helps these investigations reach more people who deserve to know what's really in their cart. The dominance of these high-bidder products creates an illusion of variety that masks a monopoly of ingredients. You might stand in the snack aisle and see 100 different boxes: crackers, crisps, bars, and puffs. It looks like an abundance of choice. But flip the packets over, and the deception becomes clear. They are all constructed from the same 4 cheap, subsidized industrial crops. Corn, soy, wheat, and sugar, bonded together with seed oils. The variety is purely cosmetic. It is the same nutritional void, extruded into different shapes and dusted with different synthetic flavorings. This creates a dangerous economic incentive. The supermarket makes more money selling you the processed derivative of a crop than the crop itself. A potato is cheap and has a low margin. A potato chip, fried in oil and coated in flavor enhancers, can be sold at a markup of 3,000% relative to the raw ingredient. The entire financial structure of the UK supermarket sector is leveraged on this conversion of whole foods into processed commodities. They need you to buy the bad food because that is where the growth lives. Furthermore, these products are engineered to bypass your body's natural stop signals. This is the science of the bliss point, a specific ratio of salt, sugar, and fat that excites the brain's reward centers without triggering the satiety hormone that tells you you're full. When you eat a plain boiled potato, you get full relatively quickly. When you eat that potato processed into a crisp, you can consume 1,000 calories and still feel hungry. The supermarket knows this. They stock these vanishing caloric density foods because they guarantee repeat customers. You don't just eat them. You devour them, and then you return to the store to buy more. The architecture of the store is designed to exploit this biological vulnerability. Notice how the end caps, the displays at the end of each aisle, are almost never stocked with eggs or green beans. They are exclusively reserved for high-margin, high-addiction items like soda, chocolate, and crisps. These are the impulse zones, designed to break your resolve as you transition between aisles. Even if you enter the store with a strict list of healthy ingredients, you are forced to walk a gauntlet of triggers designed by behavioral psychologists to wear down your executive function. By the time you reach the checkout, your decision-making fatigue has set in, and you are defenseless against the final assault. The wall of confectionery right next to the till. It is a calculated ambush. And it is not just your willpower they are targeting. It is your children. The placement of sugary treats at the checkout height is specifically calibrated to the eye level of a 5-year-old sitting in a trolley. The industry term for this is pester power. They are monetizing your exhaustion. After 40 minutes of navigating a sensory minefield, making dozens of micro-decisions about price and nutrition, your executive function is depleted. You are tired. Your child is overstimulated. The supermarket offers you a solution to the tantrum they engineered: a chocolate bar. It is a transaction born of fatigue, not hunger. But the deception goes deeper than placement. It is woven into the very identity of the products on the shelves. In recent years, UK supermarkets have heavily pivoted toward phantom brands. You might pick up a packet of beef mince or a punnet of strawberries branded with a rustic-sounding name like Boswell Farms or Redmere Farms. The packaging features woodcut illustrations of rolling hills and traditional barns, evoking a sense of local, small-batch agriculture. Feels wholesome. Feels trustworthy. The reality is that these farms do not exist. They are figments of a marketing department's imagination, trademarks owned by the supermarket giant itself to disguise industrial, mass-produced commodities. This strategy allows them to sell lower-quality, intensive agriculture products while bypassing the negative perception of budget lines. It creates an illusion of provenance that comforts the consumer while completely obscuring the supply chain. You believe you are supporting a specific farmer. In reality, you are buying the same industrialized product, just dressed in a tweed jacket. If uncovering these layers of retail psychology helps you navigate the aisles with more clarity, subscribing to the channel ensures you remain informed as we continue to investigate the food industry's hidden mechanisms. This disconnect between the packaging and the product is essential for selling bad food because if you truly understood the journey of that ultra-processed meal, you likely wouldn't eat it. The modern supermarket relies on the sanitization of origin. Bad food that is high in stabilizers, preservatives, and refined carbohydrates, is incredibly profitable because it is immortal. A fresh apple is a liability. It bruises, it rots, it requires careful temperature control, and it has a shelf life of weeks. A box of sugary cereal or a frozen pizza is an asset. It can sit in a warehouse for months, requires minimal care, and offers a massive profit margin. This economic reality creates a perverse incentive structure. The supermarket makes more money selling you the problem than the solution. They are not in the business of public health. They are in the business of inventory turnover. Consequently, the healthy options are often pushed to the periphery, both physically in the store and economically in terms of pricing. We have created a system where eating real, nutrient-dense food is a luxury tax, while consuming inflammatory, nutrient-poor filler is the default setting for the working class. Even the tools designed to help you, like the traffic light labeling system on UK packaging, are being gamed. Manufacturers have learned to manipulate the data to avoid the dreaded red warning labels. They do this by adjusting the recommended serving size to unrealistic portions. A bag of crisps that any normal person would consume in one sitting is suddenly labeled as 2 servings, instantly having the salt and fat content on the label, turning a red warning into an amber pass. The math works on paper, but it fails in the real world. You are consuming the red level, but the package assures you it is only amber. So, where does this leave us? We are walking through a landscape designed to extract wealth at the expense of health. The supermarket is not a neutral warehouse of goods. It is a meticulously constructed engine of consumption that exploits your biology, hides the truth behind rustic labels, and prioritizes shelf-stable profit over human nutrition. The solution is not to stop shopping, but to stop sleepwalking. We must view the supermarket as an adversarial environment. We have to recognize that the colorful packaging is camouflage and that the deals are often traps. The act of buying raw ingredients, vegetables that look like vegetables, meat that isn't hidden behind a fake farm name, and grains that haven't been pulverized into oblivion, is now an act of rebellion. The system is designed to sell you bad food because bad food is good business. But the moment you understand the architecture of the trap, you can choose to step around it. The power they hold relies entirely on your passivity. When you stop responding to the triggers, when you ignore the impulse zones and look past the marketing to the ingredient list, their grip begins to loosen. The next time you walk through those automatic doors, remember, you are entering a battleground for your health. Make sure you are the one who decides what goes in the trolley.